You're listening to the Options Insider Radio Network. For more quality options programs, visit www.theoptionsinsider.com or search for Options Insider Radio Network in your podcast provider of choice. Listeners can also access all of our programming through our mobile app, available in iTunes and on Google Play.
Welcome to the Hot Options Report, your premier source for insight into the fast-moving options market. Each day, we'll track down the products that are dominating the options chains and impacting your trading account. From Apple to VIX and everything in between, if it's lighting up the options tape, then you'll find it on the Hot Options Report. If you're listening to this show, chances are you're pretty serious about options trading. So let me put something on your radar. Public. It's the most cost-effective way to trade options. That's because Public is the only platform that gives you rebates on your options trades. They also have some of the industry's lowest index options fees. Whether you're placing single leg or complex multi-leg trades, every dollar counts. Check out public.com/optionsbrief and discover the most cost-effective way to trade options. Paid for by Public Investing. Full disclosures in podcast description. And now, get ready to scan the tape for the most explosive options activity on the street. It's time for the Hot Options Report.
All right, everybody, welcome to the Hot Options Report. Bit of an early edition, about an hour before the close here on Tuesday, September 16th. And is it a wild day on the first day of the Fed meeting heading into the Fed decision tomorrow? The answer is yes, at least from a volume perspective, especially if you're looking at VIX. VIX already putting up a couple of days worth of volume, and we still have about an hour left to go in the session. VIX cash flirting with the 16 handle right now, ticking up a little bit, about a little over a quarter of a point out there, and already putting up 1.5 million contracts, listeners. So a very hot day. Of course, it is the final day to trade VIX options. They, of course, go the way of the dodo tomorrow, which is why we're seeing so much paper, obviously, going up out there right now. Also worth noting, if you were planning to trade VIX options expiring this week for the Fed announcement tomorrow, just bear in mind, they are going the way of the dodo after today's close. So you're not getting the vol crush or the vol pop, whatever you're looking for. You're not getting it if you're trading options that expire this week. You have to go out a little bit in VIX options. Just bear that in mind. And the hot option out there on a hot day in VIX land, interestingly enough, it's not a contract that's going the way of the dodo today. It's November, the November doubles, the No 55s, 104,000 of those lighting up the tape out there today. So interesting. Would not have been my first guess, but that's why we crunch the numbers here, listeners, at the end of the day. All right, let's keep rolling, shall we? Is it a hot day? The answer is it's decent. Not quite as explosive as we're seeing in the VIX. The VIX already putting up a couple of days worth of paper. The S not quite there. 2.82 million contracts. That's against an ADV of just slightly under 4. So not exactly blowing the doors off. The SPX hanging out right now, 66.1430, off about a point. So really pretty much a rounding error out there today. Again, it's a lot of people keeping their powder dry, waiting for the Fed tomorrow, listeners. And the hot option in the SPX right now, it's 125,000 of the 66.15 calls. Again, we're hanging out pretty close to that strike right now, within about $1 of it, at least in the cash. And the average price for those, $330. So if you're buying those, obviously you need the SPX to stay here and run a little bit heading into the close. Again, you got about an hour to go. We've seen wild things happen in the land of SPX in the final hour, indeed in the final 10 minutes. So we'll keep an eye on that as we keep on rolling out to SPY. Is it a banger day in SPY? The answer is no, which again is kind of interesting. And we talked about the reasons behind VIX putting up so much paper today, but still interesting to see VIX. Such an anomaly today. Everyone else is kind of waiting for the Fed. SPY closing in on 5.5 million contracts right now. The ADV slightly under 8, about 7.8 million out there. And the hot option in SPY today, it's going to the downside. It's the 660 puts. 497,000 of those going up today. Average price is 65 cents. Hanging out 660 and a half. So we're flirting with that strike out there today. Obviously, if you bought those puts, you want a lot more downside on the tape before the end of the session. Will that happen? Guess we'll have to keep an eye on the tape as we keep on rolling out to small caps. Yesterday, a banger day in small caps, but then again, we discussed that yesterday on the show, and of course, the fact that it was going ex-div, and that usually tends to gin up some wild numbers out there, and we did see that yesterday in small caps. Is it a hot day out there today in small caps, though? The answer, surprisingly, is yes, which is interesting given the fact the index is only down not even 0.25% right now, yet we're closing in on 2 million contracts, 1.75 million contracts already. That's a pretty hot day when the ADV is only about 1.3 million contracts. And the hot option on a hot day in small caps today, listeners, 229 puts expiring at the end of this week, going up 125,000 times. So pretty spicy one out there, listeners. Average price for those, 60 cents. So we're hanging out right now, 238 and change in small caps. So 229, got a little ways to go. Can we get there by the end of the week? What would crush small caps down to 229 and below by the end of the week? Well, I'm guessing probably not a great outcome coming out of tomorrow's Fed decision. So I'll be interesting to see what's going on in small caps. Either way, 229 puts leading the dance out there in small caps. As we keep on rolling out to the NASDAQ also kind of unched today. So not a big underlying day for them. Putting up 2.85 million contracts, also kind of light on the volume front. The ADV is a little bit north of 4 million, about 4.15 million. So it doesn't seem like we're on pace to threaten that today. And the hot option out there in small caps today, 287,000 of the 591 puts. Again, we're hanging out 591.68 right now in the queues. Average price of 65 cents. So you know what I'm going to say? It's got to get in gear to the downside if you want those bad boys to pay off by later in the session. We'll keep an eye on those as we keep on rolling out to the land of single name stock options, listeners. Is it a hot day out there in single names? The answer is, kind of a shrug your shoulders kind of day. We saw us get really hot out of the gate yesterday. By this time of the day, they had put up pretty much 500,000 contracts to break into the top 10. Not quite there today, 383. That gets us to our old pal, Wolf Speed, a.k.a. the Wolf. We were just talking about these yesterday on the option block and this name, and how it's one of my favorite names out there. Wolf and Speed just jammed together. It's absolutely hilarious. Makes zero sense, especially for the former Cree light bulbs. And then B, how the paper out there has been kind of wild. A pretty wild day out there today, hanging out right around $2.50, off about 45 cents or a little over 14% out there today. So they are coming for the Wolf. We saw size puts going up yesterday, deep in the money puts, going up for, I think they were $1.65. The stock was $2.65, and they're paying $1.65 for 2.5 puts, I believe, that were expiring in October. It seemed kind of wild, and there's wild paper afoot again today, listeners. The hot option in the Wolf today, 54,000 of the 4 calls expiring not this week, but next week. Average price for those about 40 cents, so going the other way. That's kind of interesting. We've seen a lot of paper fading this name. Looks like it was against the 2.5 calls, but opening on both on a ratio. 4 selling the 4s, maybe buying the 2.5s. A wild one out here, listeners. Looks like it was a 4 2.5 ratio vertical. Looks like a little over 1/2, almost 1/3. So interesting, funky stuff. Either way, the 4 calls expiring next week, lighten up the tape in the Wolf. Are you down for that, listeners? You think the Wolf can threaten the 4 strike? I guess we'll find out as we keep on rolling, listeners. Number 9. It's a name we haven't talked about in a little bit. This is good old BBAI, a.k.a. Big Bear AI Holdings. You know it. Maybe you love it. Maybe you hate it out there, listeners. Either way, BBAI trading almost $6, up about 80 cents or about 16%. So a good little day for good old BBAI. And what's the hot option on a hot day? By the way, putting up 387,000 contracts for the number 9 spot out there today, listeners. And the hot option, about 41,000 of the 6.5 calls expiring not this week or next week, actually October 3rd. So going out 2 weeks for BBAI. By the way, average price for those 32 cents. Stock about $6 right now. Can it gain half a buck in a couple of weeks? That actually seems kind of mild for these hot AI names out here, listeners. Interesting stuff. Again, almost 41,000 of those going up today, all opening. So interesting stuff. 6 halves, 32 cents. Would you be a buyer or a seller, listeners? Keeping it in the B names for number 8, going out to China. It's our old pal Baba. 395,000 contracts on the tape. For this one, Baba hanging out right now, 162 and about a quarter, up about 4 1/4, or about 2.6% out there today. So a decent day for Baba. All things China back on the menu, and the hot option out there, about 23,000 of the 160 calls expiring this week. Average price for those about 371. That may sound rich, but then again, we're trading right now 162 and about a quarter, so they're about 2 1/4 in the money. So factor that in when you're looking at that price, listeners. Maybe it makes a little more sense out there. So interesting, in the money calls going up. Don't see that too often outside of those div plays in a lot of our top 10 names. As we keep on rolling to number 7, another ADR. It's our old pal JD.com. 34 3/4, up about $1.12 or 3 1/3%. So all things China looking good, looking hot in the top 10 out there today. And what is the hot option and a hot day on JD today? It's 56,000 of the regular October. So we are all over the place. Regular October monthly, 37 calls. Again, we're hanging out right now about 34 3/4. So about $2 1/4 out of the money calls. Trading today for about $1.15. So you like those, listeners? Would you roll the bones on those, or would you say sold to you out there, listeners? Hot day out there for number 7, our old pal JD.com. As we keep on rolling to number 6, listeners. Yes, it's our other old pal. They're all old pals on the top 10, listeners. But it's the Amazonians, listeners. Looking hot, looking heavy out there today. Number 6, 548,000 contracts on the tape for them, listeners. Amazon hanging out a little bit shy of 235 right now, 234.85, up about 340, or about 1.5% out there, listeners. And what's the hot option on a decently hot day out there in Amazon today, listeners? Let's find out, shall we? It's 57, almost 58,000 of the 235 calls. Pretty much the at-the-money strike right now. Going up for about $2.60 out there today, listeners. So interesting stuff. Nearly 60,000 of these. Would you be a buyer or a seller? 235s. We're hanging out there right now. Can we sustain that throughout the rest of the week? Obviously, you have to get to 237.60 for those to break even by the end of the week. Can we get there and stay there? Or are you sold to you? In which case, you want to hang out here or below. We shall find out later on in the week, listeners, as we keep on rolling to another name that's been a frequent offender over the past week. It's our old pal Oracle, back over the par strike, 304.63, up $2.50. So actually a comparatively quiet day for them. We've seen them move 80, 100 handles intraday. So not quite putting that up today. Putting up 668,000 contracts today as well. So a little bit lighter volume out there for Oracle. And the hot option out there in Oracle today, listeners, 36, almost 37,000 of the 320s, listeners. The 320 calls expiring at the end of this week. Average price of about $5.42. Again, this name has been rocking and rolling all week. So it's a pretty juicy vol, almost a 75 vol, hence that fairly lofty price. So obviously you have to close right around 325.5 if you're buying those, listeners. So 304.5 right now. 320 seems like a bit of a distant memory. Would you be a buyer of those, or would you say sold to you quite happily? Either way, hit us up. Let us know as we keep on rolling, listeners. Keeping it in the O Tech names for number 4, it's our old pal Open, listeners. Trading right around $9 today, $8.96, actually off a little over half a buck. Putting up 723,000 contracts for the number 4 spot out there today, listeners. And the hot option on a decently hot day and Open today, 81,000 of the 10 calls expiring on Friday. Average price for these, about 50 cents. So you know the deal. Got to get the 10.5 and stay there if you close there at least on Friday. If you get there earlier, of course, you can bail and live to fight another day. But interesting stuff, 10.5. This name has been all over the place. Got to almost 11 not too long ago. Was $2.50 not that long ago as well. Was 50 cents not that long before that. So Can it be at 10 by Friday? Sure. Can it be at $2 by Friday? Sure. It's an absolutely wild name. 81,000 contracts going up on the 10 strike right now, listeners. As we keep on rolling to number 3, it's our old pal, the Fruit Company. Trading almost 240, 239 and about a half, up about 2 3/4, a little over 1%. So a hot day for Apple. Decent volume as well, 1.07 million contracts on the tape. And the hot option on a decently hot day in Apple today. Remember I said we're threatening that 240 strike. Somebody's paying attention. 139,000 of the 240s expiring this week are lighting it up today. Average price of $2.11. So you know the drill. If you're buying those, got to get to 242.11 by Friday's close. Obviously, if you get there earlier, or if you get close to it earlier in the week, you can get out or have a chance to at least get out and probably scratch these. But if we get there by the end of the week, of course, you're looking pretty good. And if you're selling these bad boys, obviously you have to stay at 242 and change or below by Friday's close to live to fight another day out there. Interesting stuff on the Apple front as we keep on rolling to number 2. Once again, number 2. Is this a sign of a new paradigm out there? Have the paradigm shifted? Is NVIDIA kicked to the curb? Number 2, 175 1/4, off about $2.50 today. So kind of a rounding error day in NVIDIA. Also a rounding error day on the volume side, which is why it's probably number 2. Only 1.14 million contracts on the tape in NVIDIA so far today. Usually we see them putting this up by midday, if not sooner. So kind of a quiet day in NVIDIA. Still a quiet day in NVIDIA, still good for number 2. So it's a hot name, but interesting how light the paper is. Again, a lot of people keeping their powder dry ahead of Powell and Company tomorrow. The hot option out there today, though, 97,000 of the 177.5 calls expiring this Friday. So about $2.25 out of the money calls right now. Average price of about $1.80. So obviously we need to run a little bit by the end of the week. Think we can get there 177.5 listeners, obviously plus $1.80. Can we get there by the end of the week, listeners? We shall see as we keep on rolling to the big dog out there yet again this week. It is Tesla. Tesla taking the crown once again. 420. We were just talking about this strike just yesterday on the hot options report out there in good old Tesla. In fact, that was the hot option yesterday in Tesla. 129,000 of the 420s. Now, you might be saying that's a good do, and it is. We're at that strike right now, but they traded for $11.37. So that's pretty juicy. It's close to a 70 vol. So you pay that much for it. You can't just hang out at the strike. You have to keep running out here, listeners. But they got there early enough. Maybe you can get out and get the heck out of Dodge and with a little bit of money in your pocket. Either way, 420.11 up another $10 or 2.5%. So the rally in Tesla continues on the back of apparently good numbers in the battery storage and paying Musk $1 trillion. That's the hot thing driving. Oh, and the fact that he's going to put $1 billion of that back to work buying the stock. That's good math, I think. If you can get 20 plus handles out of your stock and only cost you $1 billion if you're Musk, I think you would do that trade all day long. Either way, about 100,000 of the 420s lighting it up again today. And again, this is why I tell you, careful of the levels you pay if you're buying these things. We did rally 10 handles, listeners, but obviously a bit of a vol crush going on out there as well because the average price for these today was so far a little bit shy of $10, $9.95. So vol crush, decay, obviously it's a weekly contract, so decay is going to hit that contract pretty hard. So they're averaging about $10 today, even with the stock about $10 higher. So that's kind of wild. We were at 410.25 yesterday. So interesting stuff out there for these 420s in Tesla. And that is going to do it for your hot options report. Little early one today before the end of the session today, Tuesday, September 16th. Hope your week is off to a good start out there. Obviously a big one coming up tomorrow. Got the Fed. Keep some powder dry ahead of that one, listeners. Should be an interesting announcement out there. Will they cut rates? Seems like the market is pricing it in as a certainty. Will it be a quarter point? Will it be a half point? Will they do nothing? Surprise the heck out of everybody. Definitely one to watch tomorrow. We'll be back to wrap it all up for you after the closing bell tomorrow. Another episode of the Hot Options Report. Oh, yeah. And stay safe out there, everybody.
Check out public.com/optionsbrief and discover the most cost-effective way to trade options. Paid for by Public Investing. Full disclosures in podcast description.
You're listening to the Options Insider Radio Network. For more quality options programs, visit www.theoptionsinsider.com or search for Options Insider Radio Network in your podcast provider of choice. Listeners can also access all of our programming through our mobile app, available in iTunes and on Google Play.